You survived the Miami weekend, nailed the speech, and maxed out your credit card in the name of friendship. Now you've got one hangover, 4 pastel dresses, and 0 reasons to wear them again. Sell them on Depop. Just snap a few photos, and we'll take care of the rest. And you at least get some of your dignity, money back. Someone on Depop wants what you've got. Start selling now. Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
Athletic Brewing Company crafts award-winning non-alcoholic beers for those who want to be part of every round. With over 185 flavor awards, they're exceptional NA beers that fit your lifestyle and any social occasion. Summer's full of good times, and Athletic fits right in. Go to athleticbrewing.com to have brews delivered to your door, or find them at a bar, restaurant, or store near you. Near beer. Athletic Brewing Company. Fit for all times.
Step into the intriguing world of The Black Box, a captivating true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Where the shadows of the past reveal the most bizarre and unorthodox crimes committed within the Black community. Each episode delves deep into a unique case, exploring both solved and unsolved mysteries that challenge the norms of conventional crime narratives. From peculiar heists to enigmatic disappearances, The Black Box unravels stories that highlight the complexities and nuances of urban life. With expert interviews, community insights, and a keen exploration of the human psyche, listeners will find themselves drawn into a world where every episode poses the question, what lies behind the black box of urban crime?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Black Box, where forgotten voices find light. A podcast created to bring a lot of details in a smaller amount of time. I'm your host, Kay, and together we will venture into the shadows of urban true crime mysteries, unearthing stories of solved and unsolved cases that have tragically faded from public memory within the African American community. Today, we discuss a talented man in Black history. Now, yes, the official month for Black history is February, and we are now in the month of March. However, Black history is always happening and always around us, celebrated year-round. Tonight's case highlights the highs and lows of the jazz world and how you should never take someone for granted. Join me as I demand remembrance and seek justice for those left behind in the dark. The Black Box is now open. Now, as I stated before, Black History Month may be officially over according to certain standards, but I want to continue acknowledging Black history by combining both true crime and honoring a talented musician, because each of them has their own unique story. One was an amazing musician whose habits and ways ended his life too soon. And in the true crime aspect, was from a potentially too devoted common law wife that, despite the horrific act, got off almost scot-free. Helen Joyner was born in 1926 in Brunswick County, North Carolina. There's not much on her background or her family as far as her parents or the specifics of how she grew up, but she grew up on a farm near Cape Fear, and in that time, a lot of kids worked on their family's farms and helped their parents out with the land, and that's basically what she did. But she had to grow up fairly early because, as generations before her, she had children at a very young age. Helen had 2 sons back to back, one at 13 years old and then the second when she was just 14. Now, I'm assuming at that age and that time in life, being in the 1940s, she had to have gotten pregnant by an older man. Again, it's just an assumption, but one thing that I've noticed is that it was common and seemingly the norm for older men to prey on young girls. And what's even more sad is that a lot of times it's someone close within the family or something like that. Take Aretha Franklin, for example. She was 12 years old when she got pregnant with her oldest son, Clarence. And it was by somebody that was close within the family that did it. And sadly, like most situations, the predator was protected and the young adolescent is left with the shame. And that's pretty much what it was with Helen. She became a mother before she really knew what parenthood was. Right after she had the kids, she left them with her grandmother and she told them, I got to get out of here. I can't handle this right now. She didn't move too far, however. She moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, where she lived there for a while and met her first husband, a bootlegger named Roy Crawford. He was 22 years older than her. So you have this 39-year-old man with a 17-year-old girl. So now do you see why I said that I feel like these girls are having these kids so young? Because they're groomed by these older men. This is a prime example of that. She's 17 years old when she meets him, and literally after a week of so called courtship, they go ahead and get married. Helen Joyner becomes Helen Crawford. And Roy, he's a slick talker. He's from up north from New York. He must have put that game on her something serious to get married after a week. But they do, and they live in marital bliss for about 2 years because when Helen was 19 and Roy is now 41 years old, tragically, he dies by drowning. Helen is devastated and now a widow. Here she is at 19 and dealing with more than she ever planned. She left her kids behind to be raised by their grandmother. Now she's living in a town where it was just her and her husband, and now he's gone. After his funeral, Helen decided to go and be with his family up in New York. She's very close with his family, and they tell her, listen, sweetie, if you need anything, you can come here and we've got you. And that's what she does. And at first, she's thinking, okay, I'm just going to go up there for a little bit. But I guess she just decided, hey, you know what? I like it here because she ended up permanently living in New York and leaving North Carolina completely behind. There, she started a new life. She got a nice little job, got an apartment on 53rd Street. Her job was amazing to her. She worked at an answering service. And if you don't know what an answering service is a third-party service that handles inbound telephone calls for businesses and doing things like taking messages, scheduling appointments, patching urgent calls in, all done 24/7. You mostly get them when you're calling your doctor's office after hours or something like that. But Helen was working there and she was living her life. She was very sweet. Everybody liked her. She was becoming very well known as she was very well spoken, dressed nice, the whole nine. Being in New York, there was one thing that Helen liked to do, and that was go to jazz clubs and listen to music. She would go there and just have her a good time. She liked that kind of nightlife. She would get all dolled up and get cute, and she was easily spotted, especially by men. They would see her, and naturally they were attracted to her. And she was attracted to the overall scene of things. People got close to her. She got cool with other people. She became popular. Everyone wanted to be around her. The musicians got in good with her. She would have the musicians coming to her house after their set, and she would cook food for everybody. Like she was the original after party. You know how you go to the club and then you got the after hour spots? She brought that Southern vibe to New York. It was routine for her. Everybody would go perform, and then they would come to her house to fill their stomachs. In doing this all the time, Helen saw that a lot of the musicians were into drugs. They would have their dealers in the clubs and in her home and everything. They latched onto Helen too. And they started seeing how chill Helen was and how she got along with everybody, and they figured, we can use her. A few of the dealers approached her, hey, we need to use you. And she's like, oh, really? How so? And they tell her, listen, I need to move some drugs. Nobody's going to think twice to look at you. We could get you to take some, drugs across the state lines for us, take them to Jersey or to Philly or wherever. And for whatever reason, she agreed to it. She would do it for them. I can only assume that they paid her, but she was trustworthy, a true Southern belle. But don't let the kindness fool you. Remember, she was married to a New Yorker that was a bootlegger and slicker than a can of oil, so she knew the tricks of the game. You cross her and you'll get a different side, which is like most people. There's a good side and there's a bad side to everyone. It's all on how you treat them as to what side you get. And Helen was one of those people that let it be known, like, hey, don't take my kindness for weakness. And those words were never so true when it came to the man that she would fall madly in love with, Lee Morgan. Edward Lee Morgan was born July 10th, 1938, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to Otto Ricardo and Nettie Beatrice Morgan. I love me some good old country names. Now, Edward was the youngest of four children. He had an older sister, Ernestine, and two older brothers, Otto Jr. and James. Although his first name is Edward, he went by Lee. He was a very gifted and talented kid pretty much early on. He loved music, he really liked the saxophone, and learned how to play that at an early age. He also enjoyed the vibraphone, which is rare because not a lot of people are drawn to that instrument, but it was the trumpet that really got his attention. On Lee's 13th birthday, his sister Ernestine gave him a trumpet because he was so interested in music, and he started playing almost instantly. That trumpet was his first love. He played it everywhere, including at school where he attended Mastbaum High. Because of this, his career started very early. He had influences from the greats like Charlie Parker and Clifford Brown. He started taking lessons with them, and if you knew who Clifford Brown was, you know he was just a musical genius. Lee started recording albums and songs, and like I said, he was studying with the greats, not to mention Lee was fine, and I'm talking about a suave and debonair somebody. I could see why women were throwing themselves at him. He had the swag, the smile, the eyes. He knew that he was pretty. Pretty Ricky, what they called him. By the time he was 18, the legendary Dizzy Gillespie himself heard him play and said, I want this kid. And Lee quickly joined his band, and he took off in the industry. Like I said, he was recording and making great music. His first album, Lee Morgan Indeed, debuted in 1956, and he didn't stop there. That same year, he recorded two more albums introducing Lee Morgan and Lee Morgan Sextet. Lee was showing no signs of slowing down. He released four more albums in 1957, two the following year, and each year giving jazz lovers something new that had them grooving, every note more melodious than the last. But being in the jazz world, you're put in situations that are hard to avoid, like drugs. And being a young kid, naive and eager to make a name, it's hard not to get caught up in it. Lee was around it all the time. Art Blakely, the leader of the band, the Jazz Messengers, whom Lee performed with, was a big drug addict that basically introduced him to it. Granted, he was a functioning heroin addict, but once Lee started doing it, it got to the point where it became him. He couldn't function without drugs. Like some of his band members, his drug of choice was heroin. He had a serious addiction to it. He was messing up a lot because of his addiction. He was losing money, things, clothes, instruments, you name it. All of the money that he was making doing shows and sets was being spent on drugs. It overpowered him, and eventually he started missing shows because he was somewhere getting high. People started talking, asking, where is Lee? The answer was simple. He was getting high. If he did show up, he was as high as a cloud in the sky. He would appear messy, disheveled, and unkempt. While the other musicians appeared in suits and hard bottom dress shoes, Lee would make his appearance in house slippers. His shirts were wrinkled, looking as if he had slept against the wall, or they were filthy and too small and had holes in them. And this is back in the 1950s, so it's not like folks had many selections on clothes, even if they were musicians. They don't have multiple options. So if you've got one good pair of shoes and you sell them, then you don't have any shoes. I mean, you have your everyday shoes and everyday clothes, but everybody had their stepping out clothes, but not Lee. He had that itch, and he needed to scratch by selling whatever he could. Being high all the time had a lot of side effects. Lee had hurt himself in many ways. I believe I read at one point he burned half the scalp because he fell asleep and landed on a radiator. Like, I remember the old school radiators that got really hot. So imagine falling asleep on one of those and smelling your own flesh burning. Like, Lee was down bad. He didn't have his instruments anymore, so he couldn't play music, and if you can't play music, you can't book gigs. Lee was hurting, struggling. He didn't have a place to live because he couldn't make any money, and he was sleeping out on the streets until he linked up with his boy Benny. Benny wanted to help him. He told him, "I'm gonna help you out." He would help him the best that he could, and the best help that he gave him was when he met Helen. Benny told him, "Hey, I need to go see a friend of mine. Why don't you come with me?" And they ended up on the doorstep of Helen Crawford. She sees Lee, and it's the dead of winter. She's in shock. "Boy, it is cold outside. Where is your coat?" And Lee tells her that he pawned it because of the fact that he wanted to get high. Benny introduces her to him as a member of the band. She looks again and she asks him, if he's a musician, where in the world is his instrument? And he tells her, "Oh, yeah, I pawned that too." Helen is flabbergasted. "So you mean to tell me you're a musician? You're a part of this great band, but you have no instrument and no coat, and it's wintertime, and you out here freezing because you want some heroin that bad?" Everything she said was true. And when she really looks at him, Lee is at his worst. Helen stares and she starts to feel sorry for him. He's shaking, he's shivering, he's cold. So she makes a decision. She looks at him and she tells him, "You know what? We're going to fix you up and get you together." She finds out where he pawned his coat and takes him to get it back, and she gets him cleaned up. She got him in a nice drug rehab program, all of that. She was really helping him get back to who he was because she knew that he needed to get out of the streets. And it seemed like everything was working for a while. Lee got clean. Helen helped him get his instrument back. She helped Lee revive. Now, he's back to playing music and she's listening to him and listening to how great he is. He still felt alive again. Like he's starting to feel alive again, and it's all thanks to Helen. She played a big part in his recovery. She let him stay with her, and after a while they ended up getting their own place together in the Bronx. At first, it was kind of on some friendship-like type vibe. The two were living together, but she was that person that he needed. It was kind of expected. She was older than him by a significant amount. He's barely in his 20s, and she's almost in her 30s, but she was the parental figure. But then things started to progress. The better that Lee got with his health, the more he started to take better care of himself and pay more attention to his appearance. Now he's dressing nice, he's looking sharp, he has the breath, the fresh breath, the pretty hair, the nice skin, the sexy smile. Oh, and on a side note, he did have fake teeth because his real teeth had been knocked out. So now that he's cleaned up, he's looking pretty good. He had sex appeal everywhere, but the only person that he was concerned about was Helen. He was falling for her hard. That was his boo, his girl, his wifey. He adored her and applauded her. "Listen, this woman is the reason why I'm standing here today. She put me back on the map." Lee was starting to get attention from women, but he paid them no never mind because he was focused solely on Helen. Lee is making more and more of a name for himself with all of the recordings that he's doing and putting Black businesses on the map, Black musicians on the map, excuse me. Interesting side note, in 1970, Lee and some of the other musicians decided that they were going to go crash the set of the Merv Griffin show while Merv was in the middle of interviewing an actor. And they were talking about how jazz musicians weren't recognized. And of course, people were seeing this and they're happy. It's, bringing attention to a beautiful art. Jazz is unique, it's a vibe. And Lee is the right one to look toward because, like I said, he's going to get a long list of accolades from his career. That man must have made like 20 albums and was getting ready to do his last album, which was gonna be called The Last Session, by the way, when all of this happened. But that night, they stormed the stage and made that audience listen. They earned a lot of respect that day. Meanwhile, in his personal life, Lee and Helen really bonded over their love of music. He had her by his side and had her managing his money, his sets. He would tell her, "Listen, baby, I appreciate everything you've done for me." And Helen was smitten. Lee, I will always be there for you, baby. I'm going to do whatever I can for you. And she proved that. She took care of him in every way. I was reading some of the articles, and it was stating that she would put off her own personal needs to take care of his. Whatever he needed, she made happen. If they weren't at the clubs performing, she would be at home waiting on him, cooking for him, cleaning. Lee was her priority. A woman starts to lose herself, and Helen was beyond lost. Everything was about Lee, and he was grateful for a very long time. He treated her like a queen, but that became unhealthy. Like you're every step of the way, you're there, every scenario, every situation, whether it be rehearsals, performances. If he had to go to the bathroom, there you are. There's no room for individuality or separation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you take nothing else from this episode, know this: your life should not revolve around your partner. Take your own time to yourself. You need your own space. You need your own room, your own individuality, because it's all good until it's not. Even though Helen was his everything in the beginning, weeks turned into months, months turned into years, and eventually, Lee started getting more and more attention from other women. Only this time, he wasn't turning them away. He's a fine man. He's got swag. He's using those sexy lips of his to blow on that trumpet. And the women are falling for him. And he's falling for them too. And at first, it was kind of minor flirting, but then it escalated and he really started playing in Helen's face. Initially, he was real low key with it. He started doing little things like coming home later, or he would be performing and Helen would see him flirting with other women. Now, Helen wasn't the quiet type. She would tell Lee exactly how she felt when he would disrespect her. She felt unappreciated, unloved. Now, the club that the band was playing in was called Slugs. Slugs was one of those spots that was predominantly for Black people, and people would come from everywhere to see Lee perform. He had a regular set there, thanks to Helen. This man probably wouldn't be able to cross the street if it wasn't for her when you think about it. I will give her credit though. Even when he upset her, she made sure his money was right and he was still paid. Now, I want to mention that one thing that Lee did for Helen when they were together and together strong, or as the young people would say, go together real bad, is that he got her a gun. With the amount of money that she was handling, Lee felt it necessary that she have one. She needed to be able to protect herself, and he told her, I don't want you in these streets caught off guard. You take this gun, and if someone tries you, you do what you need to. Of course, she didn't plan to use it, but it was good to have on hand. Now, it's been several years now, and Helen and Lee are still going. I can't say they're going strong, but they're going. They have their days, and Lee has a bit of a wandering eye, but they're still together. Lee is still referring to Helen as his wife. They're not legally married, but she's considered his common law wife. Now, if you don't know, a common law marriage is basically a marriage that is not recognized legally. But in a lot of cases, couples have been together so long that they call each other their husband and their wife, even though they never signed that good old piece of paper. Statistically, and according to the dictionary, most common law marriages, you have to be together for at least 7 years, cohabitating, and it would qualify you as a common law marriage. Again, you don't really get much benefits out of it because if you're not actually married per that piece of paper, then if your boo drops dead tomorrow, you're just that special lady friend in the obituary. You don't get any rights to life insurance or the will or anything like that, which describes Lee and Helen. She was his common law wife. So time is going on, and it's been years at this point, and now Lee is just getting more and more disrespectful with how he's treating Helen. He's out there doing his thing and, flirting around with a bunch of different females. And at this point, he's blatant with it. He's not masking it anymore. He's going home with these women and not coming home to Helen many a night. And it's just infuriating to her. She's upset because, Negro, how dare you? I made you. I brought you back to what you are now. You were a strung out dope head and I cleaned you up. I got you back together and now you want to sit here and treat me wrong? Now you want to go out here and mess around on me after all the years I invested in you? Oh no, we're not doing that. You're not about to hurt me after I practically brought you back to life. You mistreating me and cheating on me and doing me wrong when I held you down when nobody else did. I literally helped you pick yourself up off the ground. And it's facts, she did. But that didn't mean a damn thing to Lee. He was going to do him whether she liked it or not. Helen would come into slugs and Lee would be talking to females right in her face, smiling and skinning and grinning, showing all 32 teeth. And some of his bandmates were seeing it and trying to help him, and they're like, "Hey, dude, you do know your wife is here. You want to like calm that down a little bit? Maybe give it a rest." But he kept it moving like it didn't phase him. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if you're gonna cheat, at least have the decency to not throw it in my face. Now, Lee is treating Helen like an employee versus a wife now. See, that's when the lines get blurred, and that's when you start to see red. And I guess that was the case with Helen because she saw red, particularly one snowy night. It's February 19th, 1972, and Lee has a performance. Now, it's snowing out the wazoo, and this is New York, so you know the weather is crazy and the snow is probably piled high. It's that kind of snow where you can get stuck for hours or days even, but people were still hitting the clubs. And so Lee is doing his thing and he's hanging out with one of his special lady friends, not Helen, and he's getting ready to head to the club for his show. And he's hanging out with her and he tells her, "Hey, baby, you know what? I'm going to drive your car. It's bad outside. You don't need to worry about that." And so she gives him her car keys and he's driving, but right before they get to the club, he wrecks the car. Slid on some ice, messed the car up completely, totaling it. Not the gender role saving a damsel in distress and then you wreck the car. And the sad part is he couldn't even get it towed because of the weather. Insane, right? So now his new little girl is annoyed and she's ready to go. She's tired. She doesn't feel like hanging out anymore. And she tells him, "Okay, you know what? You can go do your thing. I'm leaving." And Lee continues on to the club. Even though it's like negative 13 degrees outside, people are still getting gussied up, ready to dance and have a good time, ready to enjoy some music. And Helen? Well, she's on the way because Lee hadn't come home, so now she's furious. He left her in a blizzard alone. She knows he has a set because she's the one who makes his schedules. She's the one to ensure he's good, so she gets dressed and she heads up to Slugs. She's carrying her purse, and inside of the purse is her gun, the gun that Lee gave her for protection. She gets there, and side note, there's two conflicting stories on this, but based off of her interview, she actually sat down and listened to him play. Like, sat there, listened to him perform his set, and had herself a good little time. Other reports say that she was furious the whole night. I mean, I would be too if my man was gone all night. But at some point, he takes a break and goes off to the bar. Helen turns and sees that Leah started smiling in another woman's face, and that upsets her. Once again, you're disrespecting me in front of everybody. Once again, you're disregarding my feelings. And it was at this point that Helen realized she had enough. She's waiting for Lee to acknowledge her because she knows that he sees her, but Lee is just ignoring her. He's doing his thing, he's flirting, not giving her the time of day. He is refusing to acknowledge her, and Helen is pissed off about it. She goes right up to him and he's casual with her. "Oh, hey, what's going on, Helen?" That definitely was not the way to handle it. She starts hitting him with a barrage of questions. "What are you doing, Lee? Why do you keep disrespecting me? I'm getting real sick of this. Who is this woman? How can you do this?" And believe it or not, the woman Lee was talking to gets bold and fires back. "What does it matter to you? Because y'all aren't together from what Lee is saying. You're just a thing of the past that's being clingy and don't know how to let go." And Lee proceeds to co-sign what this young lady is saying. "Helen, baby girl, we're not married for real. We're not together anymore. You know this. I don't want to be with you." Honey, Helen hauls off and slaps fire out of him. I'm talking about that old school movie slap. You can hear it from down the street. And it's rightfully earned because it's like this. "I helped you when you didn't have nothing. And now you do me like this." And so he literally puts his hands on her, pushing her out of the club. And he's telling her, "You need to leave. You got to go." But Helen wasn't trying to hear that. She reaches for her purse. She looks inside of it and she gets her gun. Now there's a bouncer there and he's trying to get her out of there. But at this point, she's yelling. Once he sees that gun, he backs down. She looks at him and says, "This has nothing to do with you. Get out of my way." And he does. She walks back over to Lee, hurt, crying. "So you don't love me anymore, Lee? I'm not your wife now?" But Lee is not fazed. He sees the gun, but he's looking at Helen and he tells her, "You're not going to scare me. You're not scaring me." And he lunges for the gun, but when that happens, Helen reacts and her finger is still on the trigger. The gun goes off and it hits Lee right in his chest. He looks at her as that bullet courses through his body and he falls to the ground. He's bleeding bad. Helen sees what happened and now she's panicking. "Oh God, what did I do? Why did you make me shoot you? Oh my God, somebody help." Naturally, the club is chaos now, and someone goes to call 911. But remember, it's a blizzard, so it takes the ambulance a good minute to get there. And when I say a good minute, I mean like an hour. It was a whole hour that went past before they got there because the streets were so messed up. And this entire time, Lee's bleeding out. His body is getting colder. And Helen is there and she's crying and she's upset. She doesn't try to run. She's not denying what happened. But when they do arrive, they load Lee up and they pronounce him dead. The cops get there and they take Helen into custody and she's arrested. She ends up at Rikers Island, which is, wow, that's probably one of the most notorious prisons in America. But here's where things kind of take a turn. Helen made no effort to flee. She didn't deny what happened, nothing. Several witnesses were there to see what happened. And after her arrest, she has a court date. In April of 1972, she has her date in court and she pleads not guilty. After she was initially arrested, she was given bail, which she posted, and was out living her life until her trial. But she pleads not guilty, and her attorneys get in her ear. Helen, honey, there are too many people involved that saw you shoot this man. You need to plead out so you don't die in prison. You may be able to use the distressed angle, but not guilty is not going to happen. So she takes the advice of her attorney and she changes her plea from not guilty to guilty and was able to plead down to second-degree manslaughter. Now, here's the aha moment. Helen pleaded and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, only 2 years. Nobody knows where she served her time. I would like to assume that it was Rikers, but there's absolutely no record. There are rumors that she was in prison. There's also rumors that she was in jail. Some people say that she was in a mental institution. Who knows? But for murder, for a crime of passion, she was very lucky to have only gotten 2 years. When she gets out, the first thing she does is she goes back to the Club Slugs where she had killed Lee. And she sees some of the people that were regulars there. When they see Helen, she's heartbroken. She's worn, apologetic, and heartbroken. She walks in and she has a self-realization moment. Lee is gone. He's not coming back through those doors. He was really gone from her. She realized in that moment that she could not be there anymore. The city didn't have the same meaning as it once did. She gives her condolences and apologies to all of his friends and bandmates, packs her things, and she moves to Wilmington, North Carolina, back toward where her sons were. She became involved in the church and lived a very quiet life until she passed away in 1996, teaching us that when you love someone so much, you can't think logically. It might just be time to walk away. And in this case, she should have walked away a long time ago. As with the infamous ones, you can leave a review on any streaming app that you're able to listen to the episode on. You can also learn more about the podcast by joining the Facebook group, the Infamous Ones Discussion Group. Be sure to keep an eye out as tickets for the infamous Whodunit Murder Mystery Night will be available starting March 15th, 2026 on Eventbrite. Get yourselves ready to head to Savannah, Georgia, and compete for a cash prize of $500 and prepare for a murder mystery that won't be as easy as you think. Ladies and gentlemen, the Black Box is now closed and locked tight. I bid you farewell until the next time, the next situation, and the next mystery we unravel together. Stay curious.